Welcome to Silent Queen's Reckoning. I'm so glad you could join us today. Now let's dive right into the story.
Chapter 1. At 5:12 in the morning, Daniel Mercer slipped into his house carrying another woman's perfume on his coat and a small wooden fox in his pocket. His wife found the toy before he finished his first lie. Lydia Mercer stood at the kitchen island in a pale gray robe, one hand wrapped around a cup of untouched tea. She had not slept. Daniel had texted shortly after midnight to say an emergency client dinner had turned into an overnight negotiation. He told her the hotel conference room had terrible reception. He told her not to wait. Then he stopped answering. Now dawn pressed a thin blue light against the windows as he entered through the side door, moving with the careful confidence of a man who had rehearsed his excuse in the car. His tie was folded inside his coat pocket. His shirt collar was open. A faint streak of pink glitter clung to one cuff. Daniel smiled when he saw Lydia. "You're awake." It was not concern. It was calculation. Lydia looked at the clock above the stove, then at his face. "The negotiation went well?" "Long, but worth it." He placed his keys on the counter and rolled his shoulders as if exhaustion could make dishonesty respectable. "The Weston account is nearly secured." Lydia knew the Weston executives had flown to Chicago the previous afternoon. She knew because one of them had sent her foundation office a thank you note from the airport. Daniel did not know she knew. He rarely asked what information passed across her desk. In his mind, Lydia spent her days choosing flowers for charity dinners and signing gentle letters to donors. He walked toward the stairs. The wooden fox fell from his coat pocket and struck the marble floor. The sound was small. It stopped both of them. The toy rolled once before settling near Lydia's bare foot. It was beautifully made, painted burnt orange with white ears and a tiny green scarf. One wheel was scratched. A child's name had been written beneath it in blue marker. Noah. Daniel stared at the fox. For 1 second, his face emptied completely. No charm, no irritation, no ready-made story, just fear. Then he bent too quickly. "A client's kid must have dropped that near my chair." Lydia reached it first. Her fingers closed around the smooth wooden body. She turned it over and saw a small silver mark burned into the base. Haven House, Winter Family Collection. The room seemed to sharpen around her. Only 200 toys from that collection existed. Lydia had commissioned them for children staying at Haven House, the family residence her late mother had created beside St. Anne's Children's Hospital. Each toy was assigned to a specific child and recorded by name. They were never sold. They were never handed out at client dinners. Daniel knew the fox mattered. He did not know how much. Lydia lifted her eyes to him. "Which client has a child named Noah?" His jaw moved before his voice came. "I don't remember. There were a lot of people." "At an overnight negotiation?" "Lydia, it is 5 in the morning." Irritation arrived because fear needed clothing. "Do not interrogate me over a toy." She studied him in the cold dawnlight. There was a faint red mark beneath his ear. His hair had been smoothed by someone else's fingers. A smear of chocolate sat near the edge of his coat pocket, low enough to have come from a small hand. The details aligned with brutal simplicity. Not only a mistress, a child. Daniel reached for the fox. Lydia moved her hand back. "Give it to me," he said. The command was quiet, automatic, and revealing. Lydia's heartbeat thudded once against her ribs. "Why?" "Because it is not yours." The cruelty of the sentence entered the room before Daniel understood it. Lydia looked down at the silver Haven House mark resting against her palm. Not hers. The residence had been her mother's final project. Lydia had expanded it, funded it, protected it, and personally approved the winter toys. Yet her husband stood in her kitchen after dawn, smelling of another woman, telling her a piece of her own legacy did not belong to her. Something inside, Lydia became very still. She did not throw the toy at him. She did not cry. She did not demand a name. Daniel had spent 11 years relying on her dislike of scenes. He called her composed when other people were listening and cold when her composure denied him control. He believed quiet women could be injured indefinitely as long as no one forced them to name the wound. Lydia placed the fox on the island between them. "Go shower," she said. Daniel blinked. He had expected a fight he could dismiss or tears he could manage. Her calm made him uneasy. "You're being strange. You came home at dawn with a child's toy in your pocket. I explained it. You spoke. That is not the same thing." His face hardened. He looked toward the stairs, then back at the fox. I need sleep. We can discuss your suspicions later. He walked away without the toy. Lydia listened to his steps climb to the second floor. A bedroom door closed. Water began running through the pipes. Only then did she sit. Her hands had started trembling. She placed them flat against the cool marble and breathed until the tremor passed. The fox stared back at her with painted black eyes, cheerful and innocent, a child's object stranded in the wreckage of adult lies. Lydia picked up her phone and photographed the toy from every side. Then she opened the secure Haven House record system and searched one name: Noah. 3 children appeared. 2 had received blue bears. 1 had received the wooden fox, Noah Bennett, age 5. His emergency contact was his mother, Serena Vale. Lydia knew the name. Serena was Daniel's new events director. Young, polished, and recently promoted after Daniel insisted she had extraordinary instincts. She had attended Lydia's anniversary dinner 6 months earlier wearing a cream dress and looking at Daniel as though the room belonged to their secret. Beside Noah's name was a note from the family coordinator. Toy collected yesterday by authorized family guest, Daniel Mercer. Lydia read the line twice. Upstairs, the shower stopped. She closed the record, placed the fox inside a clean linen bag, and moved it to the locked drawer of her desk. Then she returned to the kitchen and poured Daniel's cold coffee down the sink. He thought he had left behind a toy. What he had left behind was the first piece of a life he had hidden inside hers. Chapter 2. By 8 o'clock, Daniel was asleep in the guest room with the curtains closed. Lydia knew because he had not dared enter their bedroom. He claimed he did not want to wake her, though she had been standing in front of him when he arrived. Even his courtesy had become lazy. Lydia dressed in a navy suit and pinned her mother's small gold brooch near the collar. Her reflection looked composed. Only the faint shadows beneath her eyes revealed the night. Before leaving, she stood outside the guest room door. Daniel's phone lay charging on the table just inside, visible through the narrow opening. Once, she might have stepped in and searched it. The temptation lasted less than a second. She did not need stolen access to prove what his carelessness had already exposed. The wooden fox was enough to begin. Haven House stood across a garden from St. Anne's Children's Hospital, a warm brick residence with yellow doors and wide windows. Families stayed there while children received long-term treatment. Lydia's mother, Margaret Hale, had founded it after watching parents sleep in hospital corridors beside sick children. She died before the second wing opened. Lydia had continued the work quietly, keeping her name away from banners because she believed care should not be turned into decoration. Daniel had once admired that belief. Later, he learned to exploit it. When Lydia arrived, children were eating breakfast in the common kitchen. A little girl in a purple cap pushed cereal around her bowl. 2 brothers built a tower from sugar packets. Parents moved with the particular exhaustion of people whose days were measured by test results and visiting hours. Lydia greeted them without performance. She never entered Haven House as a wealthy patron inspecting gratitude. She entered as someone responsible for the roof, the staff, and the promise that nobody there would be made to feel like a burden. The family coordinator met her in the small office. Her name was Elena, a calm woman who understood that silence could be kinder than questions. Lydia placed a photograph of the wooden fox on the desk. Elena recognized it immediately. Her expression changed. Lydia did not ask for theories. I need the collection record for Noah Bennett. Elena opened the file. Noah had not been a resident. His name had been added to the holiday support list through a special request from Daniel. The form described him as the son of a single employee facing temporary housing instability. Daniel had signed as sponsor. Serena Vale had collected meal vouchers, transport assistance, and the winter toy under Haven House's family support program. Lydia felt each fact land quietly. Daniel earned more in 1 month than many Haven House families earned in a year. Serena's salary was generous. Neither was facing housing instability. They had used a program for families under medical and financial strain to create gifts and convenience for their hidden child. That crossed a line deeper than adultery. Lydia's gaze stopped on Noah's birth date, 5 years old. Daniel's affair was not recent. 5 years earlier, Lydia had undergone her second failed pregnancy. She remembered waking in a hospital room with Daniel holding her hand and saying they would survive the loss together. He had cried against her shoulder. 3 months later, Noah Bennett had been born. The room blurred for one dangerous second. Lydia pressed her thumb against the edge of the desk until the wood hurt. Pain brought the room back into focus. Elena looked at her, but said nothing. There were moments when a person's whole past rearranged itself without asking permission. Daniel's sudden business trips during that year, his impatience when Lydia could not recover quickly, the locked phone, the unexplained softness he sometimes carried home after being absent. She had believed grief made him distant. He had been visiting his child. Lydia closed the file. "Remove Daniel's authority to submit family requests," she said. Elena nodded. "Do not contact Serena. Do not change Noah's current support until I review it." Another nod. Noah was 5. He had not invented the lie. Whatever Daniel and Serena had done, Lydia would not turn a child into collateral. The toy in her drawer belonged to him. She would return it, but not through Daniel. Before leaving, Lydia walked through the winter playroom. Paper snowflakes still hung from the ceiling, though spring had begun. A shelf displayed extra wooden animals from the collection: blue bears, red birds, green turtles. One empty space remained where Noah's fox had been assigned. Lydia touched the edge of the shelf. She thought of Daniel in the hospital 5 years ago, pressing his forehead to hers and promising that losing a child would not destroy them. At the same time, another woman had been carrying his son. Her grief had been real. His had been theater. Outside, cold sunlight fell across the garden path. Lydia stood beside her car and allowed herself exactly 1 minute to feel everything without controlling it. Anger, nausea, humiliation, sorrow for the pregnancies she had mourned beside a liar, and a strange ache for a boy who had left his fox in his father's pocket. When the minute ended, Lydia called her mother's oldest friend, Victoria Hale, who managed the family office and knew how to act without narrating every action. "I need the house access records for Daniel," Lydia said, "and a list of every payment he has directed through the family support accounts." Victoria did not ask why. That was one reason Lydia trusted her. At 9:20, Daniel finally texted, "Where is the toy?" Not "good morning," not "where are you," not "we need to talk." The toy. Lydia looked at the message while standing beneath the Haven House sign. She replied, "Safe." 3 dots appeared immediately, then vanished. Daniel called. Lydia let it ring. He called again. She turned the phone face down and drove away. Chapter 3. Daniel waited for Lydia in the living room that evening, wearing a fresh white shirt and the expression he used when preparing to explain something beneath her intelligence. A bottle of wine stood open on the table. 2 glasses waited beside it. He had dimmed the lights, as if soft shadows could make 5 years disappear. Lydia entered, removed her coat, and placed her bag on the console. "Where have you been?" he asked. "Haven House." His fingers tightened around his glass. Lydia noticed. She noticed everything now. "Why? A child lost a toy." Daniel set the glass down too hard. Wine moved against the rim. "Lydia, this game is unnecessary." She looked at him. "Then stop playing." For a moment, the old balance between them flickered. Daniel was accustomed to deciding when conversations began, how long they lasted, and which facts were too unpleasant to discuss. Lydia had allowed that pattern because she preferred peace. Now she saw that peace purchased with silence was simply a room where lies could sleep comfortably. Daniel stood. "Serena has a son. I helped her get a holiday toy. That is all. You collected it as an authorized family guest. She was busy. You came home at dawn with it after claiming you were with a client." His eyes sharpened. "Did you access a child's private file?" The counterattack was so predictable that Lydia almost smiled. He wanted to make the method more offensive than the truth. "I oversee Haven House." "You fund it. That does not mean you can invade people's lives." Lydia slowly removed her gloves. "You used a program for struggling hospital families to give gifts to your events director's son. It was 1 toy. And meal vouchers, transportation, a special request." Daniel's face changed again. He had not expected her to look beyond the fox. He walked toward the window, putting distance between them. "Serena went through a difficult period. I wanted to help." "For 5 years?" The room stopped. Daniel's back remained toward her. Lydia watched his shoulders. A tiny movement passed through them, then vanished. He had spent years believing his wife did not know how to read him because she rarely challenged what she saw. He had mistaken mercy for blindness. "Noah is 5, she said. "You signed his request. You collected his toy. You spent last night with his mother. Is he your son?" Daniel turned. His face held anger, but beneath it was the panic of a man facing a door he could not close quickly enough. This is not a conversation to have when you're emotional. Lydia's hands were perfectly still. Is Noah your son? Lower your voice. She had not raised it. That was when Lydia knew. Not from a confession, from his refusal to lie directly while looking at her. She sat in the armchair opposite the sofa. Her knees felt briefly weak, and she refused to let him see it. Tell me. Daniel rubbed a hand over his mouth. The performance of burden began. He looked exhausted, trapped by circumstances, almost noble in suffering. It happened during a terrible time, he said. We had lost the baby. You shut me out. The sentence entered Lydia like ice. He had prepared this story. Perhaps he had told it to Serena. Perhaps he had told it to himself until betrayal became a response to Lydia's grief. I was recovering from surgery, she said. I know. I was grieving. So was I. And you slept with Serena. Daniel looked away. Once. Lydia thought of the 7 nights he had claimed emergency work, the toy, the child, the kiss-shaped mark beneath his ear. Do not insult both of us with a smaller lie. His jaw tightened. At last, he exhaled. Noah is my son. The room did not break. No glass shattered. No wall opened. The clock continued ticking with obscene normality. Lydia looked at the man she had married. 5 years of birthday mornings, 5 Christmas dinners, 5 anniversaries. 5 years of him watching Lydia avoid baby showers because grief still caught her unexpectedly. 5 years of him telling her they had enough with each other while privately raising a son with another woman. How long has Serena known you were staying married? Lydia asked. She understands the situation. What situation? Our lives are complicated. No. Your lies are crowded. Daniel's expression hardened. He disliked language he could not bend. I have responsibilities to Noah, he said. I will not apologize for loving my child. There it was, the shield. Lydia felt a wave of fury so clean it steadied her. No one asked you to apologize for loving a child. You will answer for using him to hide what you did. You would never have accepted him. You never gave me the truth to accept. Daniel began pacing. Serena did not want scandal. I did not want to destroy you after everything you had been through. Lydia stared at him. He had converted 5 years of deception into protection. He had let her mourn imagined infertility beside him while presenting secrecy as kindness. You did not protect me, she said. You protected the version of yourself I was useful to. He stopped pacing. What do you want? He asked. The question came too soon. He wanted terms before consequence, a list he could negotiate. Lydia stood. Your keys. His eyebrows lifted. What? The house keys, the Haven House access card, the family event pass. Lydia, don't be absurd. Put them on the table. He laughed once, but there was no confidence in it. This is my home. The house belonged to my mother, you know that. We are married. For now. The words struck him visibly. Daniel looked at her as if she had violated an agreement. Not the marriage agreement. The hidden one where Lydia absorbed the injury and he decided the repair. You cannot throw me out because you found a toy. Lydia met his eyes. The toy did not betray me. You did. He did not hand over the keys. So Lydia walked to the wall panel and disabled them herself. The small green light beside his entry code turned red. Daniel stared at it. The first visible piece of his borrowed life had just stopped recognizing him. Chapter 4. Daniel left the house with 1 overnight bag and enough anger to keep him warm. He did not believe the separation was real. Lydia could see that in the way he packed only 2 shirts, in the way he left his watch collection upstairs, in the way he said they would speak after she calmed down. She did not correct him. People who have ignored reality for years rarely accept it because someone explains more clearly. After the door closed, Lydia stood in the foyer beneath her mother's portrait. Margaret Hale looked down from the wall in a pearl gray dress, one hand resting on the back of a chair, her expression calm without being soft. Lydia had spent much of her life trying to inherit that composure. She had not understood until now that her mother's calm came from knowing exactly where her boundaries stood. Lydia looked at the empty hook where Daniel's keys had hung. Then she went upstairs and opened the safe. Inside were the documents Daniel had always called boring. The house deed, the foundation controls, the shares in Mercer Family Events that Lydia's mother had purchased when Daniel's company nearly failed 8 years earlier. Daniel believed a private investor had rescued him. Lydia had allowed the investment to remain unnamed because he was ashamed of needing her family. That shame had not made him humble. It had made him resentful. Daniel's company now organized luxury family celebrations, corporate retreats, and children's charity galas. Its proudest upcoming event was the Bright Tomorrow Festival, a public fundraiser at the Hale Grand Pavilion. Daniel had spent months describing the festival as his legacy project. Serena managed the guest experience. Noah was scheduled to appear in a promotional family segment. Lydia found that last fact in the event plan. Her breath stopped. The festival was 10 days away. Daniel had arranged for Serena and Noah to stand beside him on stage during the closing presentation. The event plan describes Serena as a courageous single mother and Noah as a child supported by the Haven House community. Daniel would announce a new company commitment to vulnerable families while hiding that Noah was his son and that the family was neither unsupported nor eligible. He intended to use his secret child as a symbol in Lydia's mother's pavilion under a program funded by Lydia's foundation. The arrogance was almost beautiful in its completeness. Lydia sat at her desk and continued reading. Serena had selected a private family suite backstage. Daniel had approved matching outfits. A photographer had been instructed to capture warm, candid images. There was even a proposed social caption about unexpected families finding support. Unexpected families. Lydia closed the folder. The pain in her chest had changed shape. It was no longer only marital. Daniel had built a public triumph from stolen compassion. He was preparing to stand with Serena and Noah before cameras while Lydia sat at the donor table and applauded, unaware that everyone on stage shared a truth denied to her. He had planned her humiliation in advance. Her phone rang. Serena Vale. Lydia let it ring twice before answering. Serena's voice was controlled, but fear moved beneath it. Daniel said you found Noah's toy. No greeting, no apology. Yes. He needs it back. Lydia looked at the linen bag on her desk. Noah needs it back. There was a pause. Can Daniel collect it? No. Serena inhaled. Lydia, I know this is shocking, but Noah should not suffer because adults made mistakes. The sentence was carefully chosen. It placed Serena beside the child and Lydia opposite them. Adults did not make mistakes, Lydia said. 2 adults made decisions for 5 years. Serena's composure thinned. You don't know what Daniel told me. Then tell me. Silence. Lydia waited. At last, Serena said, He said your marriage ended emotionally years ago. He said you stayed together because of the Hale name and the company. Lydia almost admired how neatly Daniel had divided the lie. To Lydia, Serena was a single lapse during grief. To Serena, Lydia was a cold wife maintaining a public arrangement. To the world, Daniel was a devoted husband and generous businessman. Every woman received the version that kept her in position. Did he tell you I did not know Noah existed? Lydia asked. Serena did not answer. That was an answer. The toy will be returned directly to Noah, Lydia said. Not through Daniel. You have no right to contact my son. Then collect it yourself tomorrow at Haven House. Serena's breath caught. Haven House was public enough to feel safe and meaningful enough to remind her what she had used. I don't think that's appropriate. Neither was applying for support under false circumstances. Serena ended the call. Lydia placed the phone down. She did not feel victorious. Serena was not the architect of every lie, but she had lived comfortably inside enough of them. She had accepted vouchers meant for struggling families. She had planned to stand on stage as a symbol of hardship while sleeping with the married event chairman. Whatever Daniel promised her, she knew the source of the resources she used. The next morning, Lydia carried the fox back to Haven House. Noah arrived with Serena at 10:15. He was smaller than Lydia expected. Dark hair fell over his forehead. He wore a green jacket and held Serena's hand with sleepy trust. When he saw the fox on the office table, his whole face opened. Finn! The name struck Lydia unexpectedly. The toy was not evidence to him. It was Finn. Noah ran forward and picked it up, checking the scratched wheel with serious concern. Then he hugged it against his chest. Lydia looked at his face and saw Daniel around the eyes. The resemblance hurt, but the child did not. Noah thanked her because Serena prompted him with a touch on his shoulder. Lydia smiled gently. Keep him safe, she said. Noah nodded with solemn determination. Serena stood near the door, pale and beautifully dressed, her usual confidence absent. Her gaze moved over Lydia's face as if searching for hatred. Lydia gave her none. Hatred would have simplified Serena into a villain and Lydia into a victim. The truth was harder. Serena had been lied to, and she had also chosen to profit from the lie. No words were needed. Serena took Noah's hand and left. Through the window, Lydia watched the boy roll the fox along the garden wall as they walked away. She felt grief, but not for Daniel. She grieved the life Noah deserved to understand, honestly. Chapter 5. The first rumor reached Lydia that afternoon. A donor called to ask whether she was ill because Daniel had suggested she might not attend the Bright Tomorrow festival. Another friend sent a careful message saying she hoped Lydia was taking care of herself during a difficult emotional period. By evening, 3 people had heard that Lydia was exhausted and stepping back from public duties. Daniel had begun removing her before she removed him. It was an old habit. Whenever Lydia disagreed, he translated her silence for others. She was tired, sensitive, overwhelmed, not interested in details. He did not attack her directly. He softened her out of the room. This time, Lydia answered. She sent the festival board one short note confirming that she would attend as chair of the Hale Grand Pavilion and principal sponsor of the Haven House program. No explanation. No mention of marriage. Just her name placed clearly where Daniel had tried to erase it. The response came quickly. The festival chair thanked her and confirmed that the closing presentation would require her approval. Daniel called within 4 minutes. "What are you doing?" he asked. Lydia stood at the window overlooking the garden. "Attending the festival. You are in no condition to make public decisions." "Which condition?" He ignored the question. "We agreed you would remain behind the scenes." "You agreed with yourself. The event is too important for personal drama." Lydia looked at the program on her desk. Serena and Noah's staged family moment remained highlighted in gold. "Then do not bring personal deception onto the stage." Daniel's voice dropped. "Noah has done nothing wrong." "Correct." The word stopped him. "Then leave him out of this. You put him in it." Daniel was silent. Lydia continued. "You applied for support in his name. You arranged his appearance. You planned to present Serena as a struggling single mother. You built your closing speech around a lie. It was marketing." The ugliness of the answer was almost casual. Lydia closed her eyes for a moment. Noah was his son. Serena was his mistress. Haven House was her mother's work. To Daniel, the combination was marketing. "The closing presentation is canceled," she said. His control broke. "You cannot do that." "I just did. The press is expecting it. Then give them the truth." He breathed heavily through his nose. "You want to punish a 5-year-old because I found happiness outside our marriage." There it was again, the child as shield, happiness as excuse, marriage as dead only when describing the affair. "Noah will remain welcome at every child-centered activity," Lydia said. "He will not be displayed as proof of charity his parents did not need." Serena needed support. She needed honesty. Daniel ended the call. Lydia did not mistake the abrupt silence for surrender. Daniel would find another route. He always did when a direct door closed. That route appeared the next morning when a glossy entertainment site published a short item about the festival. The article praised Daniel's leadership and described Serena as a devoted single mother, helping shape the event's family message. Lydia's name appeared once, near the bottom, as Daniel's reclusive wife and a longtime donor. Reclusive. The word almost made her laugh. She attended hospital meetings, foundation reviews, family breakfasts, construction visits, and staff sessions every week. She simply did not pose for entertainment sites. Daniel had turned lack of self-promotion into absence, then absence into weakness. Lydia forwarded the article to the festival media team with 2 corrections. She was chair of the pavilion, not merely a donor. Serena's family story would not be part of the official program. No accusation. No scandal. The article changed within an hour. Daniel's name moved below Lydia's. Serena's description disappeared. It was a small correction, but Daniel noticed. Men who build power from placement notice every line. That evening, Lydia received a photograph from an unknown number. It showed Daniel, Serena, and Noah eating dinner in a private room at one of Daniel's clubs. Noah sat between them holding the wooden fox. Daniel leaned toward Serena with his hand resting behind her chair. They looked like a family. The message beneath it read, "He says the festival will show everyone who belongs beside him." Lydia stared at the image. It might have come from Serena. It might have come from a server. It might have been sent by someone Daniel had offended. The source mattered less than the intention behind Daniel's words. He planned to make the festival a choice: wife or mistress, hidden child or public marriage. His new family against the woman whose name had funded the stage. Lydia saved the photograph. Then she removed Daniel from the festival's opening remarks. The next morning, his portrait disappeared from the main program. Chapter 6. Daniel came to the Hale Grand Pavilion 2 days before the festival and discovered that his office key no longer worked. The building rose beside the river in white stone and glass, designed by Lydia's mother as a public venue for charity events, concerts, and family programs. Daniel had used it for years as the backdrop to his success. He gave interviews on its terrace, he hosted clients in its private rooms, he called it our pavilion when cameras were present, and Lydia's family place when bills arrived. Now the security panel flashed red beneath his hand. Lydia watched through the second-floor window as he tried the key twice, then looked around to see who had noticed. A security officer approached. No argument followed. The officer simply directed him to the public entrance. Daniel entered the planning room 7 minutes later, face flushed beneath a controlled smile. Staff members bent over seating charts and stage plans. Lydia stood at the far table, reviewing the children's activity area. "My access was disabled," he said. She did not look up immediately. "Yes. In front of staff." The door was in front of staff. His mouth tightened. The room had gone quiet without appearing to. People continued moving papers, but every ear listened. Lydia did not enjoy their attention. She accepted its usefulness. Daniel lowered his voice. "We need to speak privately." "No." He glanced around. "Lydia," she finally looked at him. "Anything about the festival can be said here." The public limit unsettled him. Private rooms were where Daniel rearranged facts. In a room with witnesses, he had to choose his words carefully. "You removed my speech. The program changed. You removed Serena's segment." It was false. His face hardened. "You are letting jealousy damage a charity event." Several staff members looked down. The accusation hung in the room, polished enough to sound reasonable if no one knew the facts. Lydia placed the program on the table. "The children's program is fully funded. The family grants are protected. The hospital presentation remains unchanged. Only your personal performance was removed." Daniel stared at her. That was the difference he could not hide. The event remained whole without him. His threat had always been that Lydia's resistance would destroy something valuable. She had made sure value was protected first. Noah was excited, he said. The use of the child's disappointment was deliberate. Lydia's voice softened, but not toward Daniel. "Noah will receive a private tour, activity access, and every gift promised to the children. He will not be placed under cameras to support your lie." Daniel stepped closer. "He is my son." The room stopped. He realized too late what he had said. One assistant's hand froze above a stack of programs. A stage manager looked toward Lydia, then away. Daniel's face changed as he understood that the secret had entered a room he did not control. Lydia held his gaze. Yes. No drama. No gasp. The single word confirmed what his anger had exposed. Daniel looked around. Everyone out. No one moved. The pavilion director turned to Lydia. She shook her head. "Continue working." Papers began moving again. Chairs scraped softly. The room obeyed her, not him. Daniel's humiliation darkened into rage. "You planned this. You spoke." He leaned close enough that she smelled mint and coffee. "If this becomes public, the festival will be buried under scandal. Then leave quietly." "You think you can replace me?" Lydia looked around the planning room at the people doing the actual work. "The event already has." His eyes flashed. For 1 second, Lydia thought he might grab her arm. His hand moved, then stopped when he noticed the security officer near the door. The officer said nothing. He did not need to. Daniel stepped back. "Serena and Noah are coming," he said. "Noah is welcome." "Serena?" As his mother. The distinction stripped away the title Serena wanted and the role Daniel had promised. No honored director beside him. No courageous single mother centerpiece. Just a parent accompanying a child to a family event. Daniel laughed without humor. "You cannot stand seeing me happy." Lydia felt the last fragile memory of their marriage settle into ash. "Happiness that requires another person's ignorance is not happiness," she said. "It is theft with good lighting." Daniel left through the public entrance. Everyone in the planning room watched him go. No one asked Lydia a question. That silence was not avoidance, it was respect. Chapter 7. The morning of the Bright Tomorrow Festival arrived under clear skies. Families lined up outside the pavilion before the doors opened. Children carried balloons and wore paper wristbands. Volunteers arranged art supplies, games, books, and small gifts across the main hall. The stage at the far end glowed beneath a wide screen showing photographs of Haven House families, with permission, smiling in kitchens, gardens, and hospital corridors. Lydia arrived before sunrise. She wore a white suit with a soft blue blouse and her mother's gold brooch. No dramatic jewelry, no armor beyond clarity. She walked every floor, checked the family rest areas, visited the medical station, and made sure the children's gifts were arranged by age. The wooden animals sat on one table, each marked with a child's name. There was no fox for Noah. He already had Finn. At 9:30, Serena entered with him through the public doors. Noah wore a navy jacket and carried the fox in one hand. He looked excited, turning his head toward every color and sound. Serena looked less certain. She had chosen a pale pink dress and low heels, elegant but not theatrical. Her eyes found Lydia across the hall. For a moment, neither woman moved. Then Noah saw Lydia and lifted the fox. "Finn is safe." His voice carried farther than he intended. Several people smiled. Lydia walked toward him. "I can see that." Noah showed her the repaired wheel. Daniel had fixed it, or perhaps Serena had. The child explained the repair with great seriousness. Lydia listened. She did not punish him with distance because his father had used him badly. Serena watched Lydia's face. "Thank you for letting him come," she said. It was the first honest gratitude Lydia had heard from her. He was always welcome. The unspoken rest remained between them. You were the uncertainty. Your choices were the uncertainty. Daniel arrived 20 minutes later. He wore a navy suit and the public smile he had practiced for years. Although removed from the official program, he moved through the entrance as if cameras might still return him to center stage. He greeted donors, touched shoulders, laughed at small remarks, and slowly worked his way towards Serena and Noah. When Noah saw him, he ran forward. "Daddy!" The word rang through the pavilion. Daniel stopped. Several nearby guests turned. Noah reached him and wrapped both arms around his legs. The wooden fox bumped against Daniel's knee. Daniel's smile froze in place. He looked at Serena first, then Lydia, then the cluster of guests who had heard. For 5 years, he had controlled when Noah could call him father and where, in private rooms, in cars, in apartments, in photographs never posted. But children do not understand public relations. Noah saw his father and named him. Lydia did not move. She did not need to reveal anything. Truth had run across the floor in small shoes. Daniel bent and placed one hand on Noah's shoulder. "Hey, buddy." The response was weak enough to confirm more than denial would have. Serena's face went pale. She looked toward the cameras near the stage. One photographer had turned. Daniel quickly lifted Noah and angled his body away. "Let's find the activity room," he said. Noah held up the fox. "I left Finn in your coat after our sleepover." The second sentence completed what the first had begun. A donor near Lydia inhaled sharply. Daniel's jaw locked. Noah continued, unaware. "Mom said you had to go home before the sun because Lydia might wake up." Serena closed her eyes. The cruelty was not in the child. It was in the adults who had built a secret and expected him to understand its walls. Daniel lowered Noah quickly. "Go with your mother." The sharpness hurt the boy. His smile disappeared. Lydia saw it and stepped forward before anger could turn the child into a target. "The craft room is open," she said gently to Noah. "They need someone to paint the first wooden train." Noah looked at her, then at Serena. Serena took his hand and led him away. Her face was tight with shame, but she kept her body between Noah and the staring guests. Daniel turned on Lydia the moment they were out of earshot. "You arranged that." The accusation was insane enough to reveal his panic. "He spoke to his father," Lydia said. "You put ideas in his head." "I returned his toy." The donor beside them stepped away, carrying the story with her. Daniel noticed. He reached for Lydia's elbow. She moved before he touched her. "Do not," she said. The word was quiet. Security shifted closer. Daniel forced his hand back to his side. "This event will be remembered for scandal because of you." Lydia looked past him at the hall full of children painting, laughing, and choosing books. "No, it will be remembered for what it gives them. You are the part people will forget." The stage lights came on for the opening program. Lydia walked away from him and toward the microphone. Behind her, Daniel stood beside a table of children's toys, exposed by the smallest person he had expected to keep silent. Chapter 8. Lydia's opening remarks lasted 4 minutes. She welcomed the families. She thanked the hospital staff, volunteers, and donors. She announced new rooms at Haven House and a transportation fund for parents traveling between work and treatment. She did not mention Daniel. She did not mention Serena. She did not mention the child who had called his hidden father by the correct name. That restraint made the truth larger. Daniel remained near the back of the hall, watching the room choose to continue without him. His face had recovered its public calm, but his body betrayed him. His shoulders were too rigid. His smile appeared a second late. He kept checking his phone as messages arrived from people who had heard Noah. Serena sat beside the craft area while Noah painted a wooden train blue. She did not look toward Daniel. The festival moved forward. A children's choir performed. Doctors spoke briefly about family housing. Parents shared written messages that were read by the host rather than forcing exhausted families onto a stage. Lunchboxes were distributed. The day remained useful, bright, and protected. At noon, Daniel attempted his second move. He gathered several reporters near the pavilion terrace and began speaking as though he still represented the event. Lydia saw the cluster through the glass. Serena stood beside him now, with Noah between them. Daniel had recovered the original plan in smaller form. If he could not take the stage, he would create one outside. He placed a hand on Noah's shoulder. Serena lifted her chin. The cameras rose. Lydia walked toward the terrace. She did not hurry. Hurrying would make Daniel the emergency. He was not. As she approached, she heard him describing the importance of supporting all forms of family. The phrase sounded generous until one remembered the wife inside whose ignorance his second family had grown. One reporter asked whether Noah was his son. Daniel smiled sadly, the expression of a man preparing to present confession as courage. Before he answered, Lydia stepped through the terrace doors. The cameras shifted. Daniel's face changed. "Lydia," he said, as if warning her away from her own building. She looked at Noah first. The boy had stopped smiling. He clutched the fox against his jacket, while adults turned his life into a question. Lydia addressed the reporters. "No child will be used for a press announcement at this event." Her voice was calm and clear. Daniel tightened his hand on Noah's shoulder. "I am acknowledging my son. You should have acknowledged him without requiring an audience." The cameras captured his silence. Serena looked at Daniel. Something in her expression shifted. Perhaps she heard, finally, how his public courage depended on public reward. Daniel turned toward the reporters again. "My wife has struggled with the situation." Lydia almost felt the old trap close around her. The emotional wife, the complicated situation, the brave father. He had prepared this shape for years. She opened it with one fact. Daniel applied for charity support for Noah under false circumstances while paying for private hotels with the same account. The terrace went still. No long financial explanation. No dense documents. One sentence. A child's support toy beside luxury rooms. Daniel's face drained. Serena stepped away from him. "That isn't true," he said. Lydia held up a single page. On one side was the Haven House request bearing his signature. On the other was the hotel receipt from the same weekend. The dates matched. The names were clear. The nearest reporter photographed it. Daniel reached for the page. Lydia lowered it before he could touch it. "This is private," he said. "The support fund is not." Serena stared at him. "You said you paid for the vouchers." Her voice was quiet, but the microphones caught it. Daniel turned. "Not now." The same dismissal he had used on Lydia now landed on Serena. She flinched, and the last visible thread of their alliance snapped. Noah looked up at his mother. "Are we in trouble?" The child's question changed the air. Serena crouched immediately. She told him no with a shake of her head, then took his hand. Lydia looked at the reporters. "The program will continue. Noah will not lose anything promised to him. The adults will answer for the adults." That sentence became the center of the story. Not revenge against a child, not a jealous wife's rage. Protection first, consequence second. Serena led Noah inside. Daniel remained on the terrace, surrounded by cameras he had summoned. He tried to speak again. The reporters no longer asked about his courageous family announcement. They asked why he had used charity support. They asked whether other company expenses had been disguised. They asked whether Lydia had known about his son. Each question stripped another layer from the performance. Daniel looked through the glass at Lydia. For the first time, he seemed to understand that she was not going to rescue him from the scene he had created. Lydia turned and returned to the children's hall. Behind her, the cameras stayed with him. Chapter 9. By sunset, the festival had raised more money than any previous year. That fact enraged Daniel more than failure would have. The event had succeeded without his speech, without his carefully staged family segment, and despite the scandal he believed made him essential. Families received grants. Hospital transport was funded. Haven House added 6 rooms. Children went home with books, art kits, and wooden animals. Daniel went home with no key. The first article appeared before the pavilion closed. Businessman reveals secret son, faces questions over charity support. Another focused on Lydia's statement that adults would answer for adults. A short video of Noah calling Daniel Daddy spread quickly, but Lydia's team requested that outlets blur the child and remove his name. Most complied. She would not let the internet turn a 5-year-old into permanent evidence. The image that lasted was not Noah. It was Daniel on the terrace holding his hand out toward a page he could not seize, while Lydia stood calm beneath the pavilion windows. Serena did not leave with him. She waited until the crowd thinned, then approached Lydia near the family exit. Noah had fallen asleep against her shoulder, one arm hanging loose, the fox still held in his hand. Serena looked exhausted. Her perfect makeup had faded beneath her eyes. "I didn't know he used the fund," she said. Lydia believed that part. Serena had known the marriage existed. She had known Lydia did not know about Noah. She had accepted Daniel's private gifts and public silence. But her shock on the terrace had been real. "You signed the support form," Lydia said. Serena looked down. "He said it was an employee benefit. Did you read it?" No answer. Lydia did not need one. Serena shifted Noah's weight carefully. "He told me the festival was where he would finally tell everyone. He said after that, he would leave you. He was already out of the house." Serena's eyes lifted sharply. Daniel had not told her. The realization moved across her face slowly. He had come to Serena after Lydia removed him, but he had presented the move as his decision. He had used one woman's boundary as proof of commitment to another. "He said he chose us," Serena whispered. Lydia looked at the sleeping child between them. "Daniel chooses the version that protects Daniel." Serena closed her eyes. For a second, Lydia saw the temptation to comfort her. It came from habit, not affection. Lydia had spent years making painful rooms easier for everyone else. She let the temptation pass. "Take Noah home," she said. "Keep him away from cameras." Serena nodded. Before leaving, she looked at Lydia's brooch. "Was Haven House your mother's?" "Yes." Shame entered Serena's face more deeply than before. She glanced at the toy in Noah's hand. "I am sorry." Lydia did not ask which part: the lie, the husband, the support form, the staged festival plan, the years of letting another woman grieve in ignorance, an apology that broad could easily become meaningless. "Be honest with your son," Lydia said. Serena left without asking for forgiveness. That night, Lydia returned to the house alone. The rooms were dark. She turned on one lamp in the living room and sat beneath her mother's portrait. Her phone contained hundreds of messages: support, gossip, questions, outrage, requests for comment. She read none of them. The quiet after public conflict can feel like a fall. During the day, action carries the body. At night, grief arrives to collect what adrenaline borrowed. Lydia removed her shoes and curled her feet beneath her in the armchair. She thought of Noah asleep on Serena's shoulder. She thought of her own pregnancies, the empty nursery she had closed 5 years ago, Daniel telling her there would be other kinds of happiness. He had already known one. He had simply decided she was not entitled to the truth. At last, Lydia cried. Not loudly, not beautifully. She pressed both hands over her face and let the tears come until breathing hurt. She cried for the children she had lost, for the marriage she had mistaken for shelter, for the mother she wanted beside her, for the boy who would one day learn his father had hidden him and then displayed him when useful. No cameras saw. No one won. The tears belonged to Lydia, which meant they were not defeat. When they stopped, she washed her face and opened the bedroom windows. Cold evening air moved through the curtains. She removed Daniel's photograph from the bedside table and placed it face down in a drawer. Then she slept in the center of the bed. Chapter 10. Daniel's company called an emergency meeting the next morning. Lydia did not attend in person. She joined by video from her home office, seated beneath a plain wall with no visible sign of the house Daniel had lost. The board members appeared in small squares across the screen. Daniel sat at the conference table, pale and furious, with no one beside him. The questions were simple. Had charity resources been used for personal purposes? Had company staff been instructed to describe Serena falsely? Had festival funds paid for private hotel rooms? Had Daniel concealed a conflict involving the event director? Daniel answered each question with long explanations. Grief, complexity, miscommunication, administrative errors, a private family matter. The words multiplied because the facts were too small and clear. Lydia spoke only once. Protect the employees and the festival partners. Remove Daniel from decisions involving Haven House. That was all. She did not demand that the company close. Hundreds of people worked there. Assistants, drivers, event crews, caterers, designers, cleaners, and coordinators had not created Daniel's secret. Lydia would not burn their jobs to warm her anger. The board placed Daniel on leave. His face did not move at first. Then he looked toward Lydia's square on the screen. You planned this for years, he said. The accusation was almost desperate. Lydia looked at him. You did. The meeting ended. Within an hour, Daniel's photograph disappeared from the company homepage. Serena's staff profile disappeared too, though she had already submitted her resignation. The Bright Tomorrow Festival posted a thank you message centered on families and volunteers. No mention of Daniel. The world did not collapse. It simply stopped, placing him at the center. That afternoon, Daniel arrived at the house with a key he knew no longer worked. He stood on the front step, pressing the bell, while rain darkened his coat. Lydia watched through the security screen. Open the door, he said. His face looked older than it had 3 days earlier. Not because consequence had aged him, but because admiration had stopped smoothing the lines. Lydia pressed the intercom. You can collect your belongings Friday. I need to speak to my wife. You needed to speak to her 5 years ago. He closed his eyes briefly. I made terrible choices. It was the first sentence that resembled truth. Then he ruined it. But you humiliated me in front of everyone. Lydia looked at the screen, at the rain running down his face like borrowed tears. Noah spoke. The records existed. You called the reporters. You could have protected me. There it was. The real wound. Not losing Lydia. Losing her protection. I protected you for 11 years, she said. You used the time to become worse. Daniel leaned closer to the camera. Serena is leaving. She says she cannot trust me. The absurdity nearly emptied Lydia of anger. He had come to his wife because his mistress no longer trusted him. That is not my emergency. Noah needs stability. Then become stable. He struck the door with the flat of his hand. Not hard enough to damage it. Hard enough to reveal himself. Lydia stepped back from the screen. Security arrived from the gatehouse without words. Daniel looked at the two officers, then at the closed door. His shoulders dropped. Before he left, he placed something on the step. A small blue baby blanket. Lydia recognized it immediately. It had been stored in the nursery after her second pregnancy loss. Daniel must have taken it years ago. Her breath caught. On the corner, stitched in white thread, was the name Noah. Daniel had given her unborn child's blanket to his son with Serena. The cruelty was so intimate that for a moment Lydia could not move. Then understanding followed. He had not brought the blanket as an apology. He had brought it because Serena returned it after leaving him. He wanted Lydia to see shared grief, to understand that he had transferred hope from one child to another. He wanted the object to make his betrayal look human. Instead, it revealed another theft. Lydia waited until he was gone. Then she opened the door and lifted the blanket from the wet step. The fabric smelled faintly of rain and storage. She did not destroy it. She washed it carefully and placed it in a clean box. Noah had used it. That made it part of his childhood now, no matter where it began. Lydia would return it to him through Serena. Daniel would not turn another child's object into a weapon. Chapter 11. Serena came to collect the blanket 2 days later. She arrived alone. Noah was with her sister, away from the cameras that still waited outside her apartment. Serena wore jeans, a dark coat, and no makeup. Without the polished surface, she looked younger and more tired. Lydia met her in the garden room rather than the main living room. The blanket lay folded inside the box on the table. Serena stopped when she saw it. "He gave that to Noah when he was born," she said. Lydia's hands remained folded in her lap. "It came from the nursery Daniel and I prepared." Serena sat slowly. The knowledge seemed to press the air from her body. She looked at the stitched name, then at Lydia. "He told me he bought it after Noah was born. He added the name." Serena covered her mouth with one hand. For a while, neither woman spoke. The room held two different griefs, connected by one man's decisions. Lydia did not pretend they were equal. Serena had known she was sleeping with a married man. She had accepted secrecy and resources. But she had not known the blanket came from a dead dream, just as Lydia had not known Daniel used their grief to begin another family. Serena lowered her hand. "I met him at a conference 6 years ago. He said you had not touched him in months. He said you cared more about the foundation than the marriage." Lydia looked toward the garden doors. "I was pregnant." Serena's face went blank. "Then I lost the baby," Lydia continued. "He told me he was grieving too." Serena began to cry silently. Lydia felt no satisfaction. "I didn't know," Serena said. "You knew enough to stay hidden." The sentence landed without cruelty because it did not need any. Serena wiped her face. Yes. Honesty again. Late, incomplete, but real. She looked at the blanket. "Noah loves it. He still asks for it when he is sick." "Take it." Serena's head lifted. "But it was yours. It was meant to comfort a child." That was the final difference between Lydia and Daniel. He used objects to claim, hide, and wound. Lydia could let an object fulfill its gentler purpose without pretending the history did not matter. Serena touched the box but did not lift it yet. "Daniel says you are trying to take the company, the house, everything. The house was mine. The company was rescued by my family's investment. Haven House belongs to its mission. Daniel is losing access, not ownership." The distinction seemed to settle something in Serena. "He promised me the pavilion apartment," she said. Lydia almost laughed, but the sound would have been too sharp. "There was no pavilion apartment. There was a family suite used by visiting hospital guests. Daniel had promised Serena another room he did not own." "It is not his," Lydia said. Serena closed her eyes. How many pieces of Lydia's life had Daniel offered another woman as proof of love? A blanket, a suite, a festival stage, charity support, access. Each gift had cost him nothing because he believed Lydia would keep paying. "What will happen to Noah?" Serena asked. "That is your responsibility and Daniel's." Serena nodded. "Haven House will not punish him," Lydia added. "But future support must be truthful." Serena looked at her for a long time. "Why are you helping him?" Lydia's gaze moved to the blanket. "I am not helping Daniel." The answer needed no expansion. Serena lifted the box and stood. At the door, she paused. "I thought if he chose me publicly, it would prove I was worth more than you." Lydia felt the sadness of the sentence, not for herself, but for the emptiness required to measure worth that way. A man who needs one woman to feel smaller before another can feel chosen has nothing valuable to give either of them, she said. Serena lowered her eyes. Then she left with the blanket. That afternoon, Lydia walked through the old nursery for the first time in years. The room had become storage, though the pale green walls remained. Boxes lined one side. A wooden rocking chair sat near the window. Daniel had removed the blanket without her noticing because Lydia had stopped entering the room after grief made every object feel sharp. She opened the curtains. Dust moved in the sunlight. For years, the room had been a sealed place inside the house and inside her. Daniel had entered it, taken what he wanted, and closed the door again. Lydia realized she had allowed the room to remain a monument to absence while he built a secret future elsewhere. She called Haven House. Within a month, the nursery would become a design room for the children's art and toy program. The rocking chair would be restored. The empty shelves would hold paint, paper, books, and unfinished wooden animals. Lydia stood in the center of the room and imagined color returning. Grief did not have to be demolished. It could be given windows. Chapter 12. The formal separation moved quickly because the facts were simple. The house belonged to Lydia. Daniel's personal belongings were documented and collected. His company shares remained his, but the Hale investment no longer gave him automatic control. Haven House removed every false request connected to Serena while preserving services already promised to Noah. Daniel tried to make each boundary sound like revenge. He told friends Lydia was freezing him out. He told former colleagues she was using money to punish him. He told Serena Lydia wanted to erase Noah. Each story failed because Lydia kept doing the opposite of what he claimed. She protected employees. She kept the festival funds intact. She returned the toy and blanket. She requested privacy for the child. Daniel had spent years relying on Lydia's silence. Now her actions spoke too clearly for him to translate. 1 month after the festival, the board removed him as chief executive. The company did not close. A long-serving operations director took over. Staff received a message assuring them their jobs were safe. Clients stayed. Events continued. Daniel had often said he was the company. The company surviving was the cleanest correction. He asked Lydia to meet him one final time at the Hale Grand Pavilion. She almost refused, then agreed because the separation papers required one last inventory of private offices. They met in the empty main hall on a rainy morning. The stage had been cleared, the large screen was dark, rows of chairs were stacked against the wall. Without people, the pavilion looked larger and less impressed by human drama. Daniel stood near the spot where Lydia had delivered the festival remarks. He wore a dark coat and no tie. The weeks had thinned his face. He looked like a man waiting for sympathy from the architecture. "I remember the first event we held here," he said. Lydia remembered too. Daniel had been 30, ambitious and charming, holding her hand under the table because he was nervous. She had loved him then. That truth did not disappear because later, truths were uglier. "You believed in me," he continued. "Yes." The answer surprised him. "Do you regret it?" Lydia considered the question. "I regret continuing after belief became evidence against myself." He looked toward the dark screen. "Serena won't let me see Noah alone. That is between you and Serena. He asks why I don't live with them." Lydia felt pain for the child, but she did not accept the burden Daniel offered. "Tell him the truth in a way a 5-year-old can survive." Daniel laughed bitterly. "You make truth sound simple." It was simple at 5:12 in the morning. He looked at her, the toy between them, the dawn, the first lie. For a moment, the whole story returned to his face. "I was going to tell you," he said. "When?" No answer. "After the festival?" Lydia asked. "After Noah stood beside you under my mother's name? After I applauded Serena as a struggling mother?" Daniel lowered his eyes. That was as close to confession as he could come. "I wanted one clean moment," he said. Lydia understood then. Daniel had not wanted honesty. He wanted a reveal he could direct, one where cameras admired his courage and Lydia's pain remained off stage. He wanted to move Serena and Noah into the light without showing the years spent keeping Lydia in darkness. "There was no clean moment left," she said. He looked at her with red-rimmed eyes. "Did you ever love me?" The question was selfish, but not entirely false. "I loved you enough to make your life easier," Lydia said. "You decided that meant I could be made smaller." Daniel's mouth tightened. "I loved Noah," he said. "Whatever else you think, I love him." "Then stop using him to make yourself look better." The sentence echoed lightly through the empty hall. Daniel looked toward the stage where he had planned to reveal his son. For once, he had no defense. The office inventory took 20 minutes. His framed awards, personal files, and spare suits were boxed. He tried once to take a silver photograph frame that had belonged to Lydia's mother. The pavilion manager quietly placed it back on the shelf. Daniel said nothing. At the exit, he turned. What happens now? Lydia stood beneath the white stone arch, her mother's brooch catching the gray light. Now you live without borrowing my silence. He left through the public doors. Lydia remained inside until the rain stopped. Chapter 13. Spring reached Haven House in small colors. Yellow flowers appeared along the path. Children drew on the courtyard stones with chalk. The design room in Lydia's former nursery opened with shelves of paint, smooth wooden toys, fabric, and books. The old rocking chair stood near the window, polished but unchanged. Lydia did not name the room after herself. She called it Margaret's Workshop. The first project was a new collection of wooden animals designed with children staying at Haven House. A girl recovering from surgery drew a purple owl. Two brothers designed a green crocodile with mismatched wheels. A quiet boy named Lucas asked for a fox with a blue scarf. Lydia paused when she saw the drawing. Then she smiled. Not every fox belonged to betrayal. Noah visited the workshop with Serena one Saturday. The cameras had moved on by then. Public attention is loud but impatient. Daniel's scandal had become old content, replaced by newer disasters and newer outrage. That was a relief. Noah carried Finn under one arm and the blue blanket folded inside Serena's bag. He ran toward the toy table and immediately began comparing wheels. Lydia watched from the doorway. Serena approached her carefully. She had found a new job with a small community arts program. Her clothes were simpler. Her posture had changed. Less display, more caution. He wanted to show Finn where he came from, Serena said. Lydia nodded. Noah placed the fox on the table beside an unfinished train, then explained to another child that Finn had survived being lost. The children accepted this as a heroic history. Perhaps it was. Daniel was not there. Serena had arranged supervised visits elsewhere. She did not discuss the details, and Lydia did not ask. They stood in silence while Noah painted a second green stripe on the fox's scarf. He remembers the festival, Serena said, not the cameras, the painting room. He remembers you told him he wasn't in trouble. Lydia looked at the child. Adults often underestimate which sentences children carry. Good, she said. Serena's eyes filled briefly. She turned away before the tears fell. Lydia did not comfort her, but neither did she harden herself for pleasure. Consequence had already arrived. Cruelty after consequence would only make Lydia resemble the people who had hurt her. At lunchtime, the children carried their toys into the common kitchen. Noah sat beside Lucas and traded apple slices for crackers. Finn rested between their plates. The toy no longer looked like evidence. It looked exactly what it had always been meant to be, a small companion for a child. That realization released something in Lydia. For months, the wooden fox had symbolized the moment her marriage became visible. But the object had existed before Daniel's lie touched it. It had been designed by an artist, sanded by a carpenter, painted by hand, recorded by a coordinator, and loved by a boy. Daniel had carried it into the wrong house. He had not created its meaning. Lydia could stop giving him that power. Before Noah left, he held Finn up to Lydia. A tiny blue line now crossed the green scarf. Now he has two families of colors, Noah said. Serena went still. Lydia crouched to his level. He looks brave. He is. Noah hugged the fox and ran toward the door. Lydia stood slowly. The words stayed with her. Two families of colors. Children often create simple beauty from truths adults turn into shame. Serena thanked her at the exit. Lydia watched them walk down the garden path. She did not imagine taking Noah's hand. She did not imagine the child she might have had. She allowed him to be himself, not a symbol, not a replacement, not proof of Daniel's betrayal. That was freedom, too. Chapter 14. 1 year after the Bright Tomorrow Festival, Lydia stood on the same stage beneath the same wide screen. The pavilion was full again. Families, hospital staff, volunteers, donors, and children filled the hall. The event had grown, but it felt less polished and more alive. Children's artwork hung beside the stage. The new wooden animal collection covered one long table. Every toy carried the name of the child who helped design it. Daniel was not on the guest list. Serena attended quietly with Noah and sat near the family tables. She did not seek cameras. When photographers moved through the hall, she turned Noah toward the activities rather than the lens. Lydia noticed. She wore a deep green dress and her mother's brooch. Her hair was pinned back. She no longer chose clothes based on whether Daniel would call them severe. She had discovered that severity was often the name insecure people gave to a woman who looked complete without their approval. The opening video showed Margaret's workshop. Children painted toys, laughed over crooked wheels, and held up drawings. Noah appeared for less than 2 seconds in a wide group shot, his face shown only with Serena's written approval. Finn sat on the table before him. No secret, no spectacle, just a child included honestly. When Lydia took the stage, applause rose. She waited for it to settle. Last year, she began. A small toy revealed a very large lie. The room became still. She did not tell the private story in detail. People already knew enough. She looked toward the toy table. For a while, I thought that fox would always represent betrayal. But objects do not belong forever to the worst thing someone does with them. A blanket can return to comforting a child. A room can become a workshop. A stage can stop displaying one person's ego and begin showing many children's imagination. Near the family tables, Noah held Finn against his chest. Lydia continued. Pain is not meaningful simply because it hurts. It becomes meaningful only when we decide what it will no longer be allowed to control. She announced that Margaret's workshop would expand into 3 hospitals. She announced a clear family support policy requiring truthful applications while protecting children from losing immediate care because of adult misconduct. She thanked the staff who had helped create it. No complicated language, just a promise that compassion would not be used as costume again. The applause that followed felt different from the applause after Daniel's exposure. That first applause had been judgment. This was recognition. After the program, Noah approached the stage carrying a small box. Serena stayed several steps behind. Inside the box was a wooden fox painted white and gold, with a tiny brooch marked on its chest. "This one is for you," Noah said. Lydia's throat tightened. She lifted the toy carefully. Beneath it, in uneven blue letters, he had written Lydia. For one brief moment, the stage blurred. "Thank you," she said. Noah smiled. "She doesn't get lost." Lydia looked at Serena. Serena pressed her lips together, eyes bright, but said nothing. The child ran back toward the activity tables. Lydia held the fox in both hands. A year earlier, Daniel had come home at dawn with a toy that exposed 5 years of betrayal. Now his son had given her another toy, freely, openly, with no lie attached. The circle did not close perfectly. Real life rarely offers perfect circles. Lydia still carried scars. Noah still had a father who would need to earn trust. Serena still had choices to answer for. Daniel still lived with consequences that no public apology could erase. But the story had moved. That mattered. Chapter 15. Daniel sent Lydia one final letter after seeing photographs from the festival. It arrived in a plain envelope with no lawyer's name and no company logo. Lydia left it unopened on her desk for 3 days. She was not afraid of the words. She simply no longer felt required to receive every part of Daniel merely because he chose to send it. On the 4th morning, she opened it. The letter was shorter than she expected. Daniel wrote that he had seen Noah holding Finn in the workshop photographs. He wrote that he had begun supervised counseling with his son. He wrote that he was working at a smaller events firm where no one cared about the Mercer name. He admitted that Lydia had funded the life he claimed to build alone. He admitted that he had used her grief as an excuse. He admitted that the festival reveal was meant to make him look brave. The words did not repair anything. They did not return 5 years. They did not make Lydia's hospital room less lonely in memory. They did not erase the blanket or the false forms or the dawn lie. But for the first time, Daniel described his actions without turning Lydia into the cause. At the end, he wrote, "I kept thinking love meant keeping every part of my life. I understand now that I was only keeping every advantage." Lydia read the sentence twice. Then she folded the letter and placed it in the boundaries file beside the separation documents. Not the memory box, not the family archive, the boundaries file. That was where the truth belonged. She did not reply. An apology can be real without becoming a bridge. That afternoon, Lydia went to Margaret's workshop. The white and gold fox Noah had given her sat on a high shelf near the window. Children worked below it, painting wheels and arguing about whether an elephant could be purple. The room that had once been a nursery no one entered now smelled of wood, paper, and washable paint. Lydia sat in the restored rocking chair. Sunlight crossed the floor. She thought of her mother. Margaret had never met Noah. She had never seen Daniel's betrayal. Yet the house, pavilion, and workshop all carried choices shaped by her values. Protect the child. Name the adult harm. Keep useful work alive. Do not confuse silence with goodness. Lydia had once believed dignity meant enduring pain without making others uncomfortable. Now she understood dignity differently. It meant refusing to let the person who caused the pain decide how quietly the truth must be told. A little girl brought Lydia an unfinished wooden bird and asked her to choose a color. Lydia selected bright red. The girl approved. Together, they painted one wing. Chapter 16. 2 years after the wooden fox fell from Daniel's pocket, Lydia woke at 5:12 in the morning. For a moment, her body remembered before her mind did. Dawn against the windows. A side door opening. Another woman's perfume. A toy striking marble. The first lie. Then the present returned. The house was quiet. No one was sneaking inside. No phone waited with an excuse. Rain touched the roof softly. On the bedside table sat a photograph of Lydia with the Haven House staff, her mother's brooch pinned near her heart. Beside it rested the white and gold fox Noah had made. Lydia got out of bed and went downstairs. The kitchen looked almost exactly as it had that morning, but the life inside it had changed. Daniel's coffee mug was gone. The wall panel carried only her code. Fresh flowers stood near the window. Plans for the next workshop expansion covered one end of the island. She made tea and watched the sky lighten. At 6, a message arrived from Serena. A photograph showed Noah preparing for his first day of school. He wore a green backpack. Finn's head stuck out of the front pocket. The message beneath it was simple. "He asked me to show you that Finn is coming too." Lydia smiled and sent back a small heart. There was no friendship between her and Serena, but there was no war either. They had built a narrow, honest peace around the child Daniel once used as a secret and a shield. Lydia did not claim a role that was not hers. She simply remained one safe adult in the edge of his world. At 7, Lydia left for Haven House. The garden was wet from rain. Parents drank coffee near the common kitchen. A father slept in an armchair while his daughter colored beside him. Staff moved quietly through the halls. In Margaret's workshop, dozens of wooden animals waited on the shelves. Lydia placed the white and gold fox among them for the morning session. It was no longer locked away as something precious enough to fear losing. Children would touch it. Someone might scratch a wheel. Paint might stain the scarf. That was acceptable. Objects meant to carry comfort should be allowed to live. The first children entered at 8. They chose brushes and colors. A boy reached for Lydia's fox and rolled it across the table. The wheels turned smoothly. Lydia watched it travel from one child's hand to another. 2 years earlier, a toy had exposed the hidden shape of her marriage. She had thought the revelation destroyed her life. In truth, it destroyed the walls Daniel had built around her sight. What remained was painful, but real. A house she owned. Work she valued. Grief that no longer stayed locked in one room. Boundaries that did not require anger to remain valid. Daniel had come home at dawn, believing the night belonged to him. He had not known that one forgotten toy would return every borrowed key, every stolen room, every false story, and every piece of silence to its rightful owner. Lydia looked around Margaret's workshop as morning filled the windows. The greatest revenge was not that Daniel lost his public image. It was that Lydia stopped measuring her life by what he lost. She measured it by what she built after he was gone. Chapter 17. Daniel's last attempt to reclaim public sympathy came 6 months after the first festival. He agreed to appear in a filmed interview about fatherhood. The program promoted itself as thoughtful and compassionate, a place where public figures could discuss mistakes without hostile questions. Daniel saw an opportunity. He no longer had the company stage or the pavilion microphone, but he still had a handsome face, a measured voice, and a story he believed could be repaired if he told it slowly enough. The preview appeared online on a Monday morning. Daniel sat in a gray chair beneath warm studio lights. He spoke about discovering late in life that success meant nothing without family. He said he had hidden Noah because he feared hurting people he loved. He described himself as a father trying to protect a child from adult conflict. The preview ended with his eyes lowered and his voice breaking at exactly the right moment. Lydia watched it once in her office at Haven House. She felt no shock. Daniel had always been most convincing when he borrowed the language of the people he injured. He had learned Lydia's words about protecting Noah and turned them into evidence of his own tenderness. He had taken the consequence of hiding a child and repackaged it as sacrifice. The interview might have worked if Daniel had left the charity out of it. He did not. In the full program, he claimed he had quietly supported Noah through a family assistance program because public acknowledgement would have exposed the boy to scandal. He described the wooden fox as a gift he arranged for his son during a painful period. He made the false application sound like private generosity. Lydia closed the laptop. She did not call the studio. She did not release a statement about adultery. She asked Haven House to publish its regular annual transparency report 3 days early. The report contained no dramatic accusation. It showed how the family support program worked, who qualified, and why truthful information protected limited resources for sick children and exhausted parents. One anonymized example explained that a high-income applicant had falsely requested support through a connected sponsor. The request had been corrected, the child protected, and the adult access removed. Beside the example was a photograph of the winter toy shelf. The empty space where Finn had once sat was visible. People connected the truth without Lydia naming Daniel. Then Serena acted. She posted one short message from her own account. Daniel did not quietly support Noah through charity. He told me the assistance was an employee benefit. I signed without reading and accept responsibility. Lydia protected Noah after learning the truth. Daniel is rewriting the record. The message was not elegant. That helped. It sounded like a tired woman refusing to carry another polished lie. Within hours, the interview clips changed meaning. Daniel's lowered eyes no longer looked sorrowful. They looked rehearsed. His claim of protection sat beside Serena's correction and the Haven House report. The studio added a note beneath the episode. Sponsors quietly removed promotional posts. Daniel called Lydia that evening. She almost did not answer, but the workshop was empty and she wanted to know whether one honest sentence had survived inside him. "You coordinated this with Serena," he said. No honest sentence. Lydia sat beside the shelf of wooden animals. "No. The report was designed to make me look like a thief. The report did not use your name. Everyone knows. Yes." The single word silenced him. Daniel breathed heavily. "I was trying to make Noah understand that I wanted him. Then tell Noah, not a camera. You have made it impossible for me to be his father." Lydia looked at the painted foxes and bears waiting for children the next morning. "Being his father is not a public position." He said nothing. "It is showing up when no one applauds," she continued. "It is telling him the truth without making him responsible for your shame. It is returning his toy because it belongs to him, not carrying it into another house while you lie to your wife." Daniel's voice dropped. "Do you enjoy this?" Lydia considered the question. Once, she might have answered defensively. She might have rushed to prove that she was not cruel, not vindictive, not pleased by his fall. Now she understood that Daniel asked the question because he still believed her feelings determined whether his actions were real. "No," she said. "That is why I am done." She ended the call. The interview disappeared from the program's featured page the next morning. Daniel did not become famous again. He became less interesting, which was harder for him. The public had already seen the pattern. A man turned every private responsibility into a stage and blamed the women who refused their assigned roles. Noah did not see the interview. Serena made sure of that. On Saturday, Daniel attended a supervised visit in a small family center with no cameras, no press, and no special entrance. He brought Noah a box of colored pencils instead of an expensive gift. According to Serena's brief message afterward, they drew foxes for an hour. Lydia read the message and felt something loosen. Not forgiveness. Relief that, for 1 hour at least, Daniel had been a father without an audience. Chapter 18. The new child privacy policy began with a sentence Lydia wrote by hand. "No child will be asked to carry an adult's public story." She placed the sentence at the top of the draft and kept the rest simple. Children receiving Haven House support would not appear in promotional material without clear permission. Parents could not exchange personal stories for better access. Donors could not stage surprise meetings for cameras. Staff could stop any interview or photograph that made a child uncomfortable. The rules came from Noah, though his name appeared nowhere. Lydia reviewed them with parents, nurses, staff members, and older children who understood more than adults often assumed. The children gave the clearest advice. Do not film when someone is crying. Ask before showing a bald head. Do not make sick children say thank you more than once. Let siblings be in pictures too. Never tell a child to smile if they do not want to. Lydia wrote every point down. At the next Haven House gathering, the policy was introduced without speeches. Staff received cards listing the rules. Families received a one-page explanation. Cameras remained outside the common rooms. The atmosphere changed almost immediately. Parents relaxed. Children stopped scanning doorways when visitors entered. Lydia realized how often generosity had been tied to performance. Smile for the donor. Hold the toy. Stand beside the banner. Tell the painful story again. She had participated in some of that before, believing visibility helped raise funds. Daniel's betrayal forced her to see how easily help became ownership when powerful adults wanted proof of their goodness. The correction became one more thing he could not take credit for. That summer, Lydia traveled alone for the first time since the separation. She chose a quiet coastal town where no one knew the Hale name. She booked a modest room facing the water, carried her own suitcase, and ate dinner at a table for one without pretending to wait for someone. On the second morning, she walked along the shore before sunrise. The hour reminded her of Daniel coming home at 5:12. For months, Dawn had belonged to that memory. The blue kitchen, his open collar, the fox striking marble, fear on his face. Now Dawn belonged to waves folding over pale sand. Lydia removed her shoes and let cold water touch her ankles. The sky turned pink above the horizon. No one watched. No one needed anything from her. She felt grief, but grief no longer arrived with instructions. It did not tell her to return, forgive, punish, or prove. It simply moved through her and left space behind. She thought about the years she had called patience love. Patience could be loving. It could also become permission when given to someone who treated every second chance as evidence that consequences were imaginary. Lydia did not regret being kind. She regretted believing kindness required endless access. When she returned home, Margaret's workshop had sent a package. Inside was a collection of drawings from the children. Purple owls, green crocodiles, red birds, and many foxes. One picture showed a white and gold fox standing beside a large yellow house. Above it, in a child's uneven handwriting, were the words, "She knows the way home." Lydia framed the drawing and placed it in her kitchen. Not above the locked drawer where evidence once sat, above the table where morning light reached first. Months later, on a cold evening, near the second anniversary of Daniel's return at dawn, Lydia hosted a small dinner at the house. Haven House staff came. Victoria came. Serena did not, nor would that have been appropriate, but she sent a new wooden train Noah had painted for the workshop shelf. The train was orange with a green roof. One wheel was blue. After dinner, the guests gathered in the old nursery, now bright with children's designs. They admired the toys and photographs. No one spoke about Daniel. His absence was no longer a subject. It was simply space being used better. When everyone left, Lydia carried the orange train to the workshop shelf. She placed it beside the white and gold fox. The two toys looked ordinary together. That was the final mercy of time. The objects that once held unbearable meaning could become ordinary again. A fox could be a fox. A blanket could warm a child. A nursery could hold paint. Dawn could be morning instead of evidence. Lydia turned off the workshop lights and stood in the doorway. She had not won because Daniel lost his company title, his house access, his public stage, or the trust of two women. Those consequences belonged to him. She had won when his choices stopped deciding the emotional temperature of her day. She had won when she could protect Noah without imagining him as proof of her own loss. She had won when she opened the nursery curtains. Downstairs, the framed drawing waited in the kitchen. She knows the way home. Lydia did. The next morning, she woke shortly before dawn and went to the kitchen without turning on the lights. Rain had stopped during the night. Beyond the windows, the garden shone with water, and the first pale line of day rested above the trees. The framed drawing caught the new light. On the counter below it, the white and gold fox waited beside Noah's orange train. Lydia opened the back door and breathed in the cold, clean air. Once, Dawn had delivered a husband carrying another life in his pocket. Now, it brought only mourning. Nothing entered the house without her permission. Nothing inside it required her silence. She made tea, opened the workshop plans, and began the day. Subscribe for more stories about quiet women, hidden power, and the moment betrayal meets consequences.